Thank you, Chair and Ranking Member, for holding this hearing, and thank you to the witnesses for joining us here today. As most of you know, adequate water supplies are crucial for wetlands, including both managing current conservation efforts and flooding agricultural lands. The region that I represent, the San Joaquin Valley, produces over 40% of the nation's fruit and vegetable supply and over 90% of global production for a number of crops. In the last half century, the focus in our region has largely been on conservation and habitat, and we've done very little to grow our water supply. It's important to conserve wetlands for the preservation of species in the region while considering the economic impacts such efforts entail. And there's probably, when I'm often asked the three most important issues in my district, the answer is water, water, and water. Sufficient access to water supply has been our biggest challenge for decades. And currently, farmers in my district are losing real access to water that's critical to the survival of the farms and to producing the very food that Americans depend on. The reality is the Central Valley's agriculture economy requires both access to water, but also respect for wildlife. It's not really one or the other, and too often that's a false choice put in front of us in these jobs. I'm committed to finding a balance where farmers have the necessary water they need to sustain our thriving agricultural community while both protecting wetlands and wildlife. My district's home to Grasslands Water District, which delivers water to one of the largest wetlands in the Central Valley. These wetlands are a key habitat for the migration of the waterfowl species and vital for their protection. For many years, in collaboration with public and private partners, including Ducks Unlimited, the Grasslands Water District has secured grant funding through the North American Wetlands Conservation Act for the conservation of these vital wetlands. However, additional funding is still needed to ensure long-term conservation efforts. Mr. Anderson, how does funding from the Pittman-Robertson Wildlife Restoration Act ensure local partners like the Grasslands Water District can secure necessary funding to support these efforts in the Central Valley?
Thank you for the question. I actually know the Grasslands, and that's a beautiful spot. And it's pristine in many ways, one of the few wetlands left in California that is actually pristine. The NAWCA would have to, well, as in the past, all the proposals to do some activity in the grasslands or other wetlands in California have to go through the proposal process. They have historically done very well in the proposal process because of the critical nature of those wetlands relative to the wildlife there. But all of our NAWCA activities, NAWCA-funded activities, are done in close collaboration with other water users in the West because of the nature that you describe of it being a scarce commodity. And it's a collaborative process, not a combative process, and it's not, we don't look at it as a win-lose process, but we look at it as win-win. And I think that the work we've done with NAWCA in grasslands is very typical and indicative of our approach in that regard. That we see the farmers and ranchers as partners in this process, not as opponents. So the concept is to collaborate.
Thank you. My understanding is that the Trump administration's federal funding freeze has paused a number of grants allocated through the Conservation Act. Have you heard from organizations about their grant funding being paused?
I'm not intimately familiar with that, but there have been some issues associated with uncertainty. My apologies. There have been some uncertainties associated with how the grant process is going to move forward, but I don't have anything definitive to add to that right now.
Well, thank you. Look forward to working with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support funding avenues for state and federal conservation efforts, as well as advanced water infrastructure. And with that, Madam Chair, I yield back my time.